We'll call this meeting to order, and ask everyone to stand for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Please be seated. Prior to this open session, we had a meeting in closed session, and we received a report on the long-range staffing forecast. And I have a motion here in open session that staff be authorized to proceed with the recruitment and hiring of a new manager of planning position. Number 2, actually that was number 2, this is number 3, that the manager of planning position be placed in salary band C. Number 4, that the planning technician position to be vacated on May 31st, 2019 be retained and remain vacant until assessment growth supports the filling of the position. Number 5, that a part-time arena attendant position be approved beginning in September 2019, not to exceed 12 hours per week, and that the full-time manager of human resources position be confirmed as a permanent position. And number 7, that the report of the long-range staffing forecast report be endorsed, and that the future staffing positions identified be considered for inclusion as part of the budget preparation each year. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder, and then I'll ask our CAO to speak about the report. Moved by Councillor Wotton, seconded by Councillor Guido, and I'll call on our CAO.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The recommendations before you, I just want to reiterate, are budget neutral. Recommendation with respect to the new manager of planning, the arena attendant, and confirmation of the manager of HR do not have a budget implication. They are net budget. And the last recommendation is requesting council endorse the long-range staffing forecast that was reviewed with council, and asking that staff be given the approval to look at that long-range forecast in consultation with council during the budget process. So none of the positions identified in the long-range report are being formally approved, but will be brought back yearly for council's consideration through the budget process. And we would anticipate that they would be funded through growth, and that any shortfall between the growth funding and the funding required for the position or positions would be looked at through savings in the budget or efficiencies in the budget, and that's our goal, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. Questions or comments? Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, I'd like to make a motion, amendment to the motion to remove point 6 and to deal with it separately.
Seconder? Seconded by Councillor Wotton. Questions or comments on that? Do you want to give some background to your reasoning?
Absolutely. So, number 6, that is that...
Are you talking about the manager of the human resources?
That's correct, that the full-time manager of human resource position be confirmed as a permanent position. I'd like to deal with that first. I find that human resources is an extremely important position in our township, and to lose such a valuable position would be a shame, and I think that deserves to be dealt with separately from the rest of the recommendations.
Okay. Councillor Wotton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Did I hear you say remove it?
Just separate it.
To separate point 6, to deal with it separately, to vote on it separately.
Is that in case the rest doesn't pass?
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, I don't see remove anywhere.
No.
Any other questions or comments on separating number 6? All those in favor of separating number 6? Just separating, we're not talking about the other ones, just separating number 6. Hands up? Oh, that motion is lost. Okay, so all of the other parts of the motion, parts 2 to 7. And we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor, or questions or comments, sorry, questions or comments? Councillor Ross?
Madam Mayor, through you, I request a recorded vote on this, please.
Fine, thank you. Okay, all those, okay, sorry, I'll call on the clerk to do the recorded vote.
Councillor Ross?
Against?
Councillor Brown? For. Councillor Guida?
Yes.
Councillor Kieserbrink?
For.
Councillor McDougall?
No.
Councillor Watton?
Yes.
Mayor Drew?
Yes. Yes. Okay, that motion is passed. Thank you very much, Council. And now we have a pleasant opportunity to appreciate our crossing guard that have worked so hard over the years, and certainly this year. They're there in all kinds of weather, and early hours, mixed up day, you know, it's hard to accomplish anything else during the day when you're a crossing guard. And we just want to recognize and appreciate on behalf of myself and council and certainly the community at large for all of the work you do in keeping our most vulnerable citizens alive and healthy and well and safe. So thank you very much, and I'm going to call on you to come forward and have a group picture taken with council, and so that we can show our appreciation to you. So Allison Vanderberg, Bruce Staten, come ahead. Felix Levy, Charles Labonovich, Rodney Illott, Rob Felix, Kim Reeves, please come forward. Robert Smith, Deborah Bender, Doug Watson, Joe DeLuca, Joan Taylor, Joan Staten, Craig Renault, and Christopher Ginn. And maybe staff. Council, if you would like to line up behind, and we'll have a group picture taken with all of our crossing guards. And we all want to shake your hand after we have our picture taken. Don't topple off. Is that okay? Yeah. Right music. Stay put so we can all shake your hand. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you for your work. How are you? Good. Thank you so much. Good. Still working. God bless you guys. Thank you. Wanted to be sure and congratulate you and thank you, because I know that some of you have to get back to work really soon, so thank you very much again for being here today, and again, our appreciation to each and every one of you. Now I'll ask if there are any announcements from council. Any announcements from council? Councillor Watton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have several, so please bear with me. First off, I'd like to congratulate the Lakefront Farmers Market at their grand opening on Saturday. Councillor Brown and I attended and gave best wishes on behalf of council. Everyone was thrilled with the new location, and it looked stunning, and the crowd was good for a first day, and I think the vendors couldn't have been happier, so we can only hope that it grows. In speaking with them, setup and everything went off fairly well, considering there was also Canoe the Non-Quan, and there was something else in the Alachum Center. So everything went really smoothly and everyone was quite thrilled. So a big shout out to those that helped make that happen, and encourage everyone to visit them on a Saturday morning. My second announcement is that next Saturday on June 8th, there is the Walk for Mental Health put on by Community Care Durham. It starts at 9 a.m. and it is being held at the Port Perry Fairgrounds. I am walking and gratefully will accept any sponsorship or challenge any of my fellow councillors to join me. Thirdly, on the 15th of June, the Port Perry Rotary Club will be holding their food bank drive, and you will see Rotarians at Voss, Foodland, and Food Basics. So if you happen to be doing your grocery shopping that day, keep that in mind and maybe bring a couple of extra things out with you. And one final thing, Madam Mayor, is that on June 19th at 8 p.m., the Blackstock Cartwright Lions Club are hosting a discussion on pot and opioids, hosted by the Lions Club with Inspector Craig Hudson from the Durham Regional Police, and it is being held at the Blackstock Recreation Center. Thank you. That's my announcement.
Thank you, Councillor Watton. Any other announcements from council? Did you have your hand up, Councillor Keithering? No? Councillor McDougall?
Again, I'd just like to echo, Canoe the Non-Quan was on the weekend, and it was beautiful weather. At the same time, we had a participation event in the park, which had a lot of families down there, and another family event on the weekend. And all in all, Palmer Park was just jammed all weekend long. And the Ontario Women Anglers Association held a fishing derby on the Sunday, and there had to be 200 children out there fishing. So I just want to thank everybody in park staff for making the park look beautiful. Thank you. That's all.
Any other announcements from council? Councillor Keithering?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the weekend, it was a pleasure to go out and see our Caesarea Fire Hall open and see people enjoying an experience with our fire hall and also our new Caesarea Community Hall. There were some new appliances that were put in, so they had a wonderful event there. The Lions Club were there doing a barbecue, and it was just a really super event, so appreciate everybody who volunteered to help make that happen.
Oh, thank you. Anything else? Any announcements from staff? Seeing none, we'll move on to 8.2 on the agenda. Council and Staff Service Awards. We have a number of employees that we're congratulating and honoring today because of years of service with the township, and just want you to know how much we appreciate your dedication and commitment to the township over the years that you've been with us. And we really, really, truly appreciate from council and staff, and certainly the community at large again, all of the work that you do. So I'll call on 5 years of service, and I'll call on Kim Cox and Mackenzie Lane to come forward. And 10 years of service, Sandra Frank. Years of service, Tracy Wright. And 35 years of service, James Pentland. James here? James not here. Thank you very much. And would you all like to come up and we'll have a group photo? And then stand up here and council can come with congratulations. So please come forward.
If I could, Mayor, could I do one before you call everyone forward?
I didn't know this until I saw the agenda.
Madam Mayor and Council, it gives me great pleasure to recognize our Mayor, Bobby Drew, on 15 years of valuable service to the Township of Scugog. Mayor Drew had 2 terms as ward councillor, 2 terms as regional councillor, and is now our mayor. I want to thank you on behalf of the community, council, and staff for your dedication over the past 15 years, Mayor Drew, and your excellent leadership as mayor. Thank you.
Group photo? I guess I'm a slow learner. Group photo. Okay, so we have a group come up here and receive congratulations and a group photo. Counselor, please come forward.
Team in here.
We'll just go back. 30 years, Tracy. Started when you were 5. That's right. Is there any disclosures of pecuniary interest on this agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to 8.3, Teresa Shaver, Business Advisory Center, Durham. Please come forward.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
You have 5 minutes? Is it? 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me here today. I just wanted to update you on the activities of the Business Advisory Center Durham, and also just to leave a little seed in your hand, or in your head about if your clients need any help, or any residents or constituents that you work with need any help with their business, that we're here to help. So, we like to think that we guide businesses every step of the way. We help them from when they start with an idea of having a business, right through planning and strategy over to success. So some of our clients we've worked with for 16 years. One in particular that I can mention started a sewing business at home. She was 16 years old, started with Summer Company program, then she worked through from that program into the Start a Company Plus program, which I'll tell you a little bit more about. And now she's opened a space, a 2,000 square feet space, 2 sewing studios, and 6 teachers. So we've been lucky enough to be along that journey with her. We are one of 54 small business enterprise centers in Ontario, and so there's one in every kind of region to help small business and to help them with services like advice around their business, business training. We offer mentorship and workshops, networking opportunities, and then entrepreneurship programs. So BACD has been around. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary on Friday, and our mission is that we inspire people to build successful businesses. When their business is successful and they're doing well, they're making money. And when they make money, we know that they spend money, and they do so locally, as well as paying taxes and being a contributing member of business. Our model is that we are a not-for-profit. We are thankfully funded by the region of Durham, as well as provincial. So the Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade is our other funder. And then we raise some of our own money through workshops and different events that we hold. The types of businesses we look after are startups and people in the idea stage, businesses growing and businesses that are existing, and then also offering business events in our community. We work very closely with BIAs, Chambers of Commerce, and other networking organizations to really support the business. So last year, our key metrics for the whole of Durham was we met with 1,200 individuals in one-on-one meetings, and they created 160 businesses that got started, and in those businesses they created 259 jobs. We took part in 185 outreach activities, so meeting with other businesses and organizations, and then delivered almost 200 workshops there. We helped 58 businesses expand, so that could be either a new location or significant sales or significant contracts. Oh, I didn't have any. I was looking for the statistics for Scugog, but I can certainly send those in later. So our top industries that we serve across the region, in fact across Canada, is other services, is a new type of business model. It's the e-commerce businesses, it's dog walkers, it's people doing things from home. It's sometimes like the Makers Hub is another business that's doing work where they are helping local makers deliver and drop off product, and then professional technical scientific businesses, which are like consultants, engineers, urban planners, website design, that kind of thing, retail trade, as you may know, arts, entertainment, recreation is another market, as well as healthcare. So our region has the same types of businesses that we're working on nationally. This just talks to some of the clients that we have, and I apologize, this says, one says Ajax. We've had businesses from all across the region because we serve over 5,000 people a year. So definitely had businesses from Scugog, from the whole of the region. We're up here fairly frequently working even with the Chamber of Commerce. Our business training, every week we run a startup session, and then we run business fundamentals to give people that basic foundational knowledge of how to run a business. And then quarterly we'll have relevant business topics to keep businesses apprised of the things changing in either labor or the CRA or intellectual property. So I mentioned earlier just our programs. The Summer Company is a youth entrepreneurship program for youth aged 15 to 29, and they get a grant and training and a mentor. Start a Company Plus is for 18 plus, for people wanting to start or grow their business. And then the Pathway program is a growth accelerator, so for existing businesses that want to grow their business. Now these programs are at no charge to businesses at all, and it's really to help them get the skills and the knowledge and the tools that they need for their business. Some of our partnerships we've had over the years. The one that we work very closely here with the Scugog Chamber of Commerce is Do It in Durham. We run it across the region. It's 55 events in 1 week in November, and it celebrates entrepreneurship on a global scale. That week is Global Entrepreneurship Week. We happened to call it Do It in Durham 7 years ago because we wanted businesses to start here, to grow here, and to create jobs here. We also run Digital Durham in concert with Digital Main Street, which I'll mention shortly. This is just our flag raising. We do move it around. This year we were at the town of Whitby. 2018, the town of Whitby. This year we're at the town of Ajax, and we'd be happy to move the flag around to celebrate entrepreneurship. 2 years ago, this was in Ajax. So some of the programming we've had is, right now we offer, this is in our offices, innovative program where people can come in and use our space and meet with other business owners, and also they can use the space to co-work if they so choose. This is the summer company graduates that we had from last year. They just completed a training on selling like a beach vendor, so they have some beach toys there with them. We've had over 400 graduates in that program. We offer a monthly lunch that's with Jack Astor's, again, free of charge, to give businesses an opportunity just to connect and meet. One of the gentlemen sitting right there is from the Ajax Pickering Board of Trade. We invite all the chambers of commerce to take part in it so that they can talk to each other and develop some memberships for their organizations. Just a few of our reviews. Just people being very happy. Can't say enough about the programs offered. Anyway, I can leave this for you to look. I know that I have pretty much 5 minutes. Where I need your help is just to help make us a household name. We are a service that is mostly free to entrepreneurs. I briefly mentioned Digital Main Street. I have some postcards on it. The Main Street program is a program offered through the OBIA, the Ontario Business Improvement Area Association, and BACD is helping the Main Street businesses with being able to apply for a $2,500 grant. The digital training is 8 hours of free training, and then we have the digital service squad that goes out to the businesses and will work up to 8 hours in each business to help them either with a website or payment, like the POS systems or their digital marketing or any of their digital or social media platforms. So thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
I know I've passed your information on to some people, and
thank you.
It's a very valuable service. You say you're funded by
the Ministry of Economic Development and also the Region of Durham.
Okay, so has the ministry or has any of the provincial announcements affected you?
Yes, of course. We have had a 38% cut in our funding. We did hear that it might change, so it'd be quite nice if they roll back something. In the meanwhile, that created an opportunity for us to look for revenue-generating opportunities. So we are running some growth accelerator programs and some boot camps, and we rent out our boardroom, so we're trying to make up the shortfall, because at the moment our shortfall is forecasted for just $17,000 this year, but $40,000 next year. So hopefully we'll be able to make it up. Okay. I'm trying to look at it as a business and say, let's make up the money.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Questions or comments? Councillor Kieserbrink.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have had the privilege of seeing you at work.
Thank you.
There's been a number of building business forums that you've been participatory in Uxbridge and here in Scugog as well, and then your Do It in Durham event in Uxbridge. Had the opportunity to participate in that as a panelist as well. It was a lot of fun. It was well attended, and I know from firsthand from people that have spoken with me about the support that they've received that it's a very valuable organization. I think all the members of council would welcome any handouts that you have, because we would be happy to continue to pass along your information, and we're really grateful for the resource that you offer to our constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. And even though we can't be in the north, we go everywhere. So it's hard to say that we will be here, but we can also do Facebook Live, YouTube Live, we do Zoom. Whatever way we can do to work with customers is what we will do. Yeah.
Further questions or comments? Councillor Brown?
Through you, Madam Mayor, just a quick question. I'm the BIA rep, so I just want to know if you've connected with the BIA.
I've connected with Brigida. I know that she just went into the role. I'm actually going after this to just go and drop off some postcards with her.
Okay.
But we haven't been able to sit down and just say, can we roll out the program to the businesses? The OBIA have asked us just to go directly to the businesses and let them know about the program, because there's a deadline of March 2020 to get the grant. It's actually even before that. The program has to be done by February, so we really need to get to the businesses, and we haven't been able to so far. So they've asked us just to go straight to the businesses, but of course we want to get the, not the approval, but the relationship with the BIA as well, so that we work together to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I also just want to mention, I have Jay Fisher, Professor of Durham College Small Business Entrepreneurship, and he's a local resident here with me today, so thank you, Jay.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Any
So I'll
other
leave
questions? Well, thank you very much,
Thank you for your
Teresa, for your presentation today. Excellent, real learning experience for many of us here, and we really do appreciate it. Good luck.
Thank you.
Pardon? Oh, okay. Motion to receive the delegation. Councillor Ross, Councillor McDougall, all those in favor, and that's carried. Thank you. So moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any items you wish pulled? 9.2.1 to 9.2.5. Councillor Guido?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 9.2.1 and 9.2.4, please.
Okay. Any others? Councillor Watton?
9.2.3 and 9.2.2.
Okay, motion to approve the rest, which would be 9.2.5, operating results. Mover, Councillor Brown, Councillor Guido, questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's carried, thank you. 9.2.1, Councillor Guido.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. My questions, if, with your indulgence, can be directed to the Director.
Yes.
Thank you. So, Director Coleman, thank you very much for your report on the dog park. While I'm not a dog owner myself, I know that during the election campaign, most homes owned a dog, and several asked for some type of off-leash dog park. I appreciate that not all residents may see a benefit to that when they have a larger property, but for those that are in town that have a smaller property, or they just want the opportunity to socialize their dog with other dogs, this is a great benefit. And it also meets two needs that may, the second need may have got clouded in the discussion about $45,000 for a dog park. The second need is the improvements for the Carolyn Best parking lot there, which we, as a previous council, heard a delegation from the ball users with their long list of needs, and at that time we weren't able to really assist them with any. So for me, this is a large win for two different organizations. Can you just speak to what the improvements would look like to the parking lot should this location be approved?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I apologize to the councillor. What we're looking at for parking lot improvements, it would remain a gravel surface, but it would be, there'd be some ditching done to improve drainage. There'd be some, an extra layer of gravel, granular A put down and graded properly so that, again, it would drain properly and it wouldn't be nearly as muddy as it is today. And there's some large potholes in the entrance there. So the driveway and the parking lot area would all be done.
Wonderful, thank you. And if I may, my next two questions are just in regards to the operation of the actual dog park once it is constructed. Through the survey questions, the feedback was they're looking for, one, a water source for their dogs, and two, the possibility for the dog waste bags. Are either of those going to be added to the dog park by the municipality?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, there isn't an easy way to have a water source there other than a trail down to the creek, which might have some environmental impacts to it. So at this time, we don't plan to put a water source there. I have heard of some municipalities just put out like a large bucket, and people come, when they go, they fill it with water for sharing. I mean, you could do something as simple as that. With respect to the dog bags, I would like to look for a sponsorship opportunity for that. I mean, owners should bring their own dog bag for the dog waste, but if we could have a sponsor to provide them so that we can make sure there were bags there all the time for dogs, that would be a very good thing.
Thank you. That would be my next suggestion, had you not mentioned that. And then, will this location be added to the list of municipal waste pickups? Will our township staff be picking up the garbage? I'm assuming there'll be a garbage can there.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, I'm proposing to put a waste bin there, a small-sized one, probably 4 cubic yards, and then having someone like Miller Waste go and emptying that on a regular basis.
And would that be included in the $45,000, or would that be an additional
There would be an additional operating cost every year for that, but it's fairly minimal.
Okay. That's perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Counselor Watton?
Thank you. Is Miller the ones that pick up at the soccer fields, or do the soccer look after their own? I'm just curious, I can't remember.
Mr. Belfry's left. Through you,
That's
Madam...
okay, you can let me know.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. We have a contract for most municipal buildings, and it's with Miller Waste right now, but we don't have a contract directly with the soccer field, so I'm not sure who does the waste there.
Counselor Brown?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Director, there'll be, first of all, it's fenced, so getting advertising, I think, is great, because there's all kinds of opportunity for you to put advertising on the fences, I imagine. And like you've got a whole bunch of fence that you're going to use. That's not just a statement, so I'm not asking you about that. Though the waste collection, you have 2 entrances to the dog park, so I presume we're going to have garbage bins. We're going to have more than one. We're going to have one at each entrance. Is that the plan?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, because the second entrance at the northeast corner is within the wooded area, we wouldn't be able to get a truck in there to empty it. So I'm proposing to just put a bin at the one entrance. You're going there to exercise your dog anyways. If if you collect waste, there's no reason you can't walk to the other entrance to put it in the bin. So I think practicality, only one bin would work.
Okay, subsequent, if I may, who is liable when one dog attacks another? How does that play out with the township? If somebody has a complaint, where do they go? What do they do with it?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, I don't know the legalities of that. There will be part of the rules that, you are responsible for the behavior of your own dog. I can follow up with the animal enforcement people, the animal officers, to find out how that would work. We can post a number. Many of the dog parks will post a number of who to contact if there's issues. We can do that.
Right. So just subsequent to that.
Just before we leave that, our bylaw officer is here. Maybe she could answer that question. Ms. Stevenson?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor.
Come up so you can get on the microphone. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, the legalities with respect to dog aggression won't change because the park is a public place. So any aggression between dogs, any issues of that sort would go to animal control and would follow the same procedures as if a dog was walking down the street and something happened.
So subsequent, if I may then, to whomever. So the township is not liable if something happens with one dog bites man, dog bites dog, whatever. The township, there's no liability to the township for that then?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, no more than if somebody was walking down the street or walking in Palmer Park or anywhere else. Usually signage is posted that people are to use it at their own risk, and then all other rules would apply, no different than what you have on the street.
Okay, and just one more subsequent question, and this is it for me. We have 9 months of winter here. Feels like 10 this year or 11. What are the plans for anything in the winter, or is it going to be closed during the winter season?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, at this point, I'm proposing that we don't maintain the driveway and parking lot area, and we put up signs to that effect, but people can still park at the arena parking lot and walk to the dog park and use it in the winter. People with dogs are usually active 12 months a year with their dogs, so if they're out for exercise, I don't see an issue with walking to the dog park.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Woo. Councillor McDougall, then Councillor Ross.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Will there be a possibility of future connection to the waterfront trail, I think along the side of the creek that follows E108?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, that was beyond the scope of what we were doing here, and we can look at that as part of the active transportation plan that we're working on.
Thank you.
Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to the Director. I know in the original presentation there's a large emphasis on trails and having that ability to walk with your dog. I see that in a lot of the feedback, people are looking more of a social aspect, so it kind of parlays into Councillor McDougall's question. Will there be any signage or display as to the trails in the area, although they'd be on leash? Will that be part of the design so that people who, as you originally identified, that are looking for a stroll through the woods will have that option?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, what we're proposing is to have a 1 hectare fenced area, which is off-leash. But there are existing trails in that immediate area through the woods there, and there would be signage up to say you must have your dog on a leash for those areas. We can, as part of the mapping of the trails, include a map of the trail system through there if we think that would be beneficial for people.
Okay, thank you. And just a follow-up, one of the things that in your report says but budget dependent is the possible separate area for small dogs. Being a large dog owner, I understand the need sometimes to separate the two. Approximate cost, does that look based on the initial, your initial assessment of it, that that's a good possibility that there'll be a separate fenced area? And if so, will it be within the hectare area, or would it be totally separate from the outlined area that you have in the report?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, the way Uxbridge has done it, they built it with a future small dog area. So to keep costs down, I was considering looking at just building one large area first and seeing how it works and if people are satisfied with it. If we find there's a strong demand after that to still have a small dog area, we could add it. And if we did add it, I was envisioning it being within the larger area as part of that 1 hectare.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor McDougall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just looking through my notes. To follow up, one of the images showed a porta potty in the area, or a possible porta potty in the area. Could that be a future consideration, given that the skate park is also nearby and there tends to be children and families around when the Scugog Recreation Complex isn't open?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, when we consulted the public, there was some request for something like a porta potty. That's something we can consider with the budget. The distance between the dog park and the skate park is fairly large. I'm not sure that it would serve both those user groups. I know there's also porta potties for the baseball diamonds, I believe. So in the summer, there might be something available.
Okay. Anything further? Councillor Kiesebrink.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With respect to you, Director Coleman, with respect to the proposed rules, when will the finalized rules be coming forward? I noticed that there was some that were accepted and some that were preferred adjusted.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, the staff will be reviewing those a bit more and coming up with finalized rules. We don't want to have excessive amounts of rules, but we also want to make sure that all the interests of people are protected there. As for time frame, if we can circulate a draft to council before we print the sign, if that would be useful.
And further, Madam Mayor, I know this week Canadian Federation of Independent Business was bringing around signage to small business owners. Apparently the rules have changed, and with no smoking, we also have to state no vaping. So I'm wondering if our rules should be amended to include that statement, no smoking and no vaping, as a part of those rules adjustments.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, our bylaw officer may know more. I think there's no smoking in parks now. Is that our bylaw?
If the region's bylaw is confirmed and goes forward as is, the dog park would be considered a public park and there would be no smoking within 20 meters of the park. That includes vaping and any smoking product.
Further, Madam Mayor, I think what I was surprised to see is that they were advising that I would assume no smoking means no smoking of all kinds, but I think for the public, they're now requiring that it be spelled out separately, no smoking and no vaping. So that's my recommendation, is that we add no vaping. If it's going to be no smoking, that we add the verbiage no vaping.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just, the way the region's bylaw is written, it's all within the definition of smoking and includes vaping and cannabis and everything else.
Anything else? Okay, the recommendation is there on page 6, and I'm wondering if we should perhaps use the word endorsed as well, so that the report, dog park and parking lot improvements update be received and endorsed. Somebody want to make that motion? Councillor Watt and Councillor Kiesebrink. Questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. 9.2.2, pulled by Councillor Watton, on page 88. Thank you very much for the report, Director Coleman. That was a big report, including all of the information that we got at the public session, so thank you very much. So, page 88, Councillor Watton, did you want to make the motion? Okay. Do you want to read it while I look it up? There it is. I got it. You got it? The report, COMS 2019-020, load capacity restriction for Seagrave Bridge be received, and that the bylaw appended as attachment 1 to report COMS 2019-020 to restrict the weight of vehicles passing over the Seagrave Bridge be brought forward for adoption. Councillor Watton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and basically this is just a clarification question to Mr. Arsenault about the load restrictions. If I recall correctly, when the design went out, the part of that was to maintain some of the way the bridge was, and that we would still be experiencing the load capacity restrictions when it was completed. It's not, this report isn't asking for something new. Is that, if you could just speak to that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Through the mayor and to the councillor, that is correct. Because we were maintaining the existing structure and the heritage appeal, that essentially would have remained the same throughout.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor McDougall?
Just for clarification, through you, Madam Mayor, to Kevin Arsenault, the 9-ton weight restriction will not allow a municipal snowplow or school bus to cross the bridge, is that correct?
Through the mayor and to the councillor, that is correct.
Very good, that's all, thank you.
Could you address how snow plowing would be accomplished, please?
Madam Mayor, that's the only vehicle that we have, that would be able to use the bridge would be one of our pickup trucks. The exact logistics of it, we're still working out how that will work, but we will have to maintain that bridge for winter maintenance.
Okay, thank you. So it's just as it was before?
Correct.
Before the failure?
Correct.
Right, okay, thank you. Councillor Guido?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Then, through you, to that point, then, how did we maintain it for snow in the past? With the pickup truck?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll have to consult with the manager of Public Works, who wasn't the manager of Public Works at that time.
That's right.
I'll consult with our lead hand. He'll know how it was.
Someone will know.
What's that?
I said someone will know.
Yes.
Okay, I was just curious as to how we managed it prior to the change. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kiesebrink?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just through you to our fire chief, so what will be the fire support process given these weight restriction parameters?
Through you, Mayor Drew, to the councillor, as it was before the bridge was closed. Our trucks cannot go over that bridge, and they will not go over that bridge. I did do a quick look today, anticipating a question. There is one house on the north side of the bridge that would be affected, and the response would be just under a minute longer than if we could cross the bridge, so minimal impact.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I need a seconder now, please. Councillor Kiesebrink, any other questions? All those in favor? And that's carried, thank you. Now, the next one is 9.2.3, and Councillor Watton has pulled that, and it's on page 93. The recommendation is that report CORP 2019-014, Kawartha Conservation Authority request for Mount Joy Road allowance be received, and then there are several options there. Councillor Watton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and if I could just ask, I had asked the clerk to check if KCA had explored the Ganaraska model, and I just wonder if you've heard back from them.
Okay. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Council. Yes, I did pose that question just today to the folks at Kawartha Conservation Authority, and I have just actually received a response back within the last 20 minutes. And with regards to the Ganaraska Forest model of allowing all recreational vehicles, including off-road vehicles, into that park, this is the response, and I'm just going to read it from my email. ATV vehicles were permitted in Ganaraska Forest prior to the Oak Ridges Moraine Act and Conservation Plan coming into force. We had Conservation saying this. We had interpretation at that time regarding from the province as we were establishing the Durham East Cross Forest Conservation Area that the allowance of ATV or other public motorized access could only occur if there was a prior agreement in effect. There was one in place for the Snowmobile Club, which was why access is permitted on the property for this use. The ATV community did not have an agreement in place, and this activity is not permitted as a result. And then finally, I would also note that there are greater risks and liability with allowing ATV use on a property where other user groups are using the same trails. So that's the response from Kawartha Conservation with regards to other recreational uses, including off-road vehicles, similar to the Ganaraska Forest model.
Further, Councillor Watton?
Thank you. So that sounds like it was an old review from KCA, and if I might, I would like to present an option 4, and that we ask them to again explore the Ganaraska Forest model, because it is my understanding that it is now they have a permit policy, and you buy a permit and you're able to use certain trails within the Ganaraska, and that some of the enforcement and so on is helped through the payment of these permits. So before we would lease or convey that road, I would like those answers. I have had people speak to me that take their horses there and they ride in the Ganaraska, and they have been quite supportive of the fact that there are motorized vehicles as well, and they believe that with permitting and giving responsibility and ownership to the riders, that it does help eliminate the carelessness. My fear is if we do something with this road, they will just find another way to access that property, and before having that happen, I would like us to make sure that KCA explores all the possibilities.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, perhaps I misunderstood what you said, your response from KRC or KCA. Did I understand that Ganaraska allows this because it was the permits were issued prior to something to do with conservation lands? And now that's why?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yeah, that's correct. So what the response was is they were permitted in Ganaraska prior to the Oak Ridges Moraine Act and Conservation Plan coming into force. So they do talk about snowmobiles as well, that they had a permit in there for snowmobiles, is what was mentioned here. There was one in place for the Snowmobile Club, which is why access is permitted on the property for this use. So that's the response from KCA.
So according to KCA, they cannot allow ATVs because that permit wasn't issued prior to the Oak Ridges Marine Act, et cetera?
So, just to reiterate, this is strictly what has been emailed to me. They said that we had interpretation at that time from the province as we were establishing the Durham East Cross Forest Conservation Area, that the allowance of ATV or other public motorized access could only occur if there was a prior agreement in effect. So that's, again, like Councillor Watton said, this sounds like it was a decision or an interpretation from when that was created, so I don't know if that's still the case as of this day, but that's the response I received from Kawartha Conservation.
Okay, anything further, Councillor Watton, then?
I'll let the other councillors go first.
I beg your pardon?
I'll let the other councillors speak to it first.
Okay, I have Councillor Ross, Councillor Guido, Councillor Kieserbrink, and Councillor McDougall. No, not you? Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know in speaking with Kawartha Conservation and also some other stakeholders on the island and in the Blackstock-Nestleton areas, that there's two conflicting groups here, and I think it's worthwhile that we listen to what people have to say in regards to this. It's a bit of a contentious issue, depending on who you speak with. The Kawartha Conservation is prepared to come down and have a delegation and would like to speak to the matter as well, where hopefully they could update us as to some of the issues that were spoken to by the clerk. But I think it's worthwhile seeing if we can find some alternative options that encompass everything. Often if you put a barricade up, as they have shown in their report, they'll find another way around it. And so maybe we could find together a way to solve this problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor McDougall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a former Ganaraska Forest member and a frequent user of the Durham, I want to say the Durham Mountain Bike Association trails, but it's not that. It's actually a conglomerate of Toronto Region Conservation Lands, Lake Simcoe Conservation Lands, Durham Region-owned property, and several others, which has completely non-motorized use, but also being familiar with East Cross Forest, having ridden my mountain bike there, and in the Ganaraska. I don't see how an agreement could have existed for the ATV users at East Cross prior to the creation of the Oak Ridge Moraine, because there was no user group that could have created it. In my notes, I actually have in support of a possible connection across the Oak Ridge Moraine to get to the Ganaraska from our area, as it is a frequently used route. I would say that the road allowance that exists, there's that road allowance and there's one south of there called Boundary Road. Those two road allowances are used to transit the area. I understand KRCA's concerns. I certainly also support the idea that maybe perhaps a delegation come down. I do know that the Ontario Trails Council says any three users can use trails at the same time. So mountain bikers, horseback riders, and motorized vehicles could possibly work. It would be a possibility, but in my mind, certainly some form of transit across that area is possible. Anyway, I'm not sure if that's possible for a delegation from KRCA to us.
Okay. Councillor Kieserbrink?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Watton and myself were invited by Blackstock Motorsports to their facility, and they were identifying that it is a key component for our community for tourism as well. There's lots more 4x4 riders and so on, and there are lots of people that are wanting safe places for trails and for their kids and their families and what have you. And I think that in theory, as Councillor Ross was saying, that although there's two diverging camps, that we may be able to find some common ground. I think the idea of a delegation, not just from Kawartha Conservation Authority, as Councillor McDougall suggested, that there's precedent for 3 different types of groups to use the trail, but maybe we could also hear a delegation from other community groups that would have a vested interest in supporting, you know, active sport and in the area of the ATVs and what have you, and maybe we could find some common ground there. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Go ahead.
So one further question, this would be for Director Heritage. I'm just wondering, if I understand correctly, is it up to municipalities to establish whether ATV drivers are permitted or not? Is there any flexibility in that regard, or do we have to establish a policy first before we can stipulate anything?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Teesebrink. My knowledge is limited, but I do know that the municipality can create a bylaw either permitting or restricting the use of ATVs.
So, further, Madam Mayor, do we currently have a bylaw that permits or restricts?
We do not.
You don't? Okay. Mr. Clerk, did you?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and just through you to Council. So just the difference in this request is that it's on their private property, so it wouldn't be a bylaw that we would enforce on their private property, but the roads to get there possibly, but just on, they're looking to block off their private property in this situation.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I do understand that, and I think what everyone is talking about is just the larger issue of trying to have trails that are all connecting and to support our constituents as a whole. And if we don't have a bylaw one way or the other, that's something to consider with respect to the delegations that would be coming forward and any solutions that we would create together. I would like to make I would like to second Councillor Lawton's motion. I think she called it motion 4, and that is to put this back to Kawartha Conservation Authority. Not that we don't understand their concerns, but just to ask them to give more consideration to this matter and potentially to come forward with a delegation.
Councillor Watton.
And just further to that, I think the Ministry of Transportation also, in 2018, passed something that would now allow ATVs on roads and so on and so forth. So I think we need to look at it as in a bigger picture. If we've got people that can travel on a road to get from, as Councillor McDougall said, from point A, and they could go through, you know, connect through another area rather than be on the road, I think that would also be a proactive way of doing it. But I know that they did pass that for some highways and provincial roads where before you could never drive on them. So, thank you.
So, with respect to, I'm sorry, Councillor McDougall, go ahead.
Sorry, thank you, Madam Mayor. Question to the clerk. Is this not with regards to leasing public lands back to the Kawartha Conservation Authority to disallow access to private lands? But this is not actually about access to private lands, this is access to public lands.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the Council, that's correct, yeah. So they want to either lease or us to convey that road allowance so they can block off access to the Durham East Cross Forest Conservation Area. Sorry, that name always gets me, but yes, which the Kawartha Conservation owns.
And the most convenient way, sorry, further through you, Madam Mayor, the most convenient way to block off access is to block off access at either end of this road allowance, said road allowance.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the Council, that's correct. So that's, you'll see within their report, that's the advice they got from Durham Regional Police, who has been ticketing and arresting people in there, as evidenced by their report that's attached to your agenda tonight. They've identified that if they could block off that access there, put some cameras or something, that would largely solve the problem in their opinion.
Further, I think I could support that blocking of that access if we could provide a route for motoring community to get to trails further afield. I understand the concerns from speaking at people at the Scugog Environmental Committee with regards to sensitive areas in that East Cross Forest, but I think that the tourism aspect and the aspect of the motoring community that exists in Burkton, Blackstock, Cadmus, the whole area, are looking for access to trails further afield. So perhaps KRCA can partner with whomever to get the users across that area. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So what we can do is approve a motion today, whatever that is, and we could still get a delegation into the council meeting when this would be ratified, so there was an opportunity to change our mind. And just for a history lesson, for a number of years, this was an area where there was a lot of crime. There's been a lot of cleanup of that. It's cost thousands and thousands of dollars to clear all of the burned out vehicles and repair a lot of the damage that had been done over the years. And so this is why I think they want this. There's still a lot of encroachment into that area, still some crime as evidenced by the police arrests. Just wanted to offer that for information. That's why it may differ from other areas. So the motion is on the floor. Are there any other questions or comments on the motion? So it would be to receive the report, and then option 4 was to request for Kawartha Conservation Authority to explore further the Ganaraska model. Councillor Watton and Councillor Keys-Green.
Thank you. If I might, I'd like to just change that the KCA be requested to explore other models of allowing recreational uses, including not just limited to the Ganaraska.
Friendly amendment. Friendly amendment, is that okay with the seconder? Okay. Councillor Keys-Green, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And further to Councillor Watton's amendment, I'd like to just add and present a delegation, because I think it would inform all of us if they could come and speak to the council, because we may still need to do the lease or what have you.
Is that a friendly amendment to you, Councillor Watton, or shall it be a formal amendment? Okay, maybe the clerk will make that request. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And in my conversations with the members of KCA who I've been, unfortunately, the girl that I've been communicating with is actually she's away today. So she did actually send me an email asking if she could come make a delegation, and I explained to her that this is a committee meeting. The fact that she wasn't available was fine because it has to come back to council anyway, and she's back for the June 24th council meeting. So I'll just advise her that council would like her to attend, and she was happy to in any case.
Okay. Is that okay with everybody? Okay, so the motion is on the floor. We have a mover and a seconder. And if there are no further questions or comments, I'll ask for all in favor. That's carried. Thank you. The next item is 9.2.4, the secondary dwelling unit registration. And Councillor Guido, you've pulled that, and it's on page 105.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And through you to Denise, I have a few questions on this. The first question, I'll go through page by page of the report just so that we can identify where my questions lie. On page 106, which is section 2 of your report, it discusses that the registration bylaw will require all owners of 2-unit houses. What happens if it's a 3-unit house by any chance?
Currently, single detached dwellings, semi-detached row houses, townhomes are permitted to have 1 additional accessory dwelling unit in our zoning bylaw.
Okay, thank you. So that was my first question. Further on that page, okay, it says, the renewal process. So every 5 years, it will require a renewal process. Can you walk me through, I know it's 5 years in the future, but what will that look like? Are we proactively sending out notifications to the homeowners?
Yes.
So who is managing that? What department?
That would be managed right now through bylaw. We would like to, the plan at this point is to, rather than get inundated with all of them, is to have a semi-yearly process where anyone that registers in the first half of the year will expire on the 30th of June, and anyone that registers in the last half of the year will expire at the end of the year. We will have our lists, and there will be notices sent out to everybody reminding them that 5 years has passed and it's time to come in and renew their permit.
So with the current structure of the bylaw department, do we have staff that's able to manage an additional process, which to me sounds like a laborious task to manage this?
It's going to, through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, it's going to be laborious initially setting it up. If we set it up as a database, we set it up appropriately, we should be able to have form letters and ideally a mail merge program where the process of notifying everybody will be quick. It will be a little more laborious on the follow-up, but given the potential safety issues, not having a registration process in place, I think far outweighs the little bit of
And I'm a
labor.
huge advocate for safety, but we've heard often that our staff right now is at their max for workload. So I'm concerned, while it's 5 years out in the future, I'm concerned that we're adding a renewal process, but also a registration process, which would potentially occur in the very near future should this pass. So that leads to my next question regarding the actual grandfathering which is being proposed. Do we have a list of existing dwellings that would be considered grandfatherable?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, yes, we do have a current list of units that have already been inspected and approved through our fire department.
And so will those residents who are on that list be sent a notification, should this pass, to say, well, we have passed this, you are considered grandfathered into the program?
Through Madam Mayor, yes, that is the plan, that we will send out notices advising them that as they have already been approved, they're approved, they're registered, they will get their permit, that will have their expiry date, and they will be advised that in 5 years we will be sending out, within the 5-year period, a reminder for their renewal.
Okay, so then for any new dwellings, I'm assuming there's a difference between enforcement for those who don't register and inspection for those that do register. Who is doing the inspection?
Through you, Madam Mayor. That will depend on when the unit was built. So there is a cutoff date for the building code where the building inspectors will do the inspection. Anything from that date forward, the building inspectors will be responsible for, excuse me, anything historically that already exists. It would be the fire department that would be responsible for doing that inspection. And that's the process that is happening right now.
Thank you. And do we have an estimation as to how long an inspection takes from start to finish?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't have, that would depend on how compliant it is and what sort of follow-up is necessary. If the fire department goes out and things need to be done, they would give the list of requirements to the property owner, and it would be the same from the building code.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, then...
Just further, Chief, do you have anything you'd like to put in for that length of time it would take to inspect?
No, I would concur. You're talking on a typical small, 600 to 900 square foot dwelling unit. a typical one, I stress, an hour to 2 hours worth of time from appointment through to report.
Okay, thank you.
So then my question again regarding staffing, we've heard that staff are full-plated as it is right now. Perhaps this is a question maybe for the CAO. We are now proposing to add more work to our staff. How are we planning on managing this?
CAO?
Thank you, through the mayor. In discussions leading up to this report, the way the work's to be proportioned is a combination of a little bit bylaw, a little bit fire, and a little bit building. So it's not an impact entirely on bylaw, it's an impact shared between the three. And it actually is a good point, because we did talk about the workload associated with this, and it's one of those situations where public safety trumped, and felt that the work was being proportioned between the three, and it was something that should be done. And I think that's the underlying point here, and we're going to have these things. You're right, you've heard from me that we've reached our maximum, but there will be things like public safety that, or statutory requirements that are imposed on us that we're going to have to do and find a way to do somehow, irrespective of the current workload. I don't know if the chief wants to add anything to that, the role of the fire department and public safety aspect.
If I may, Madam Mayor, personally, this is win-win. This is all about public safety, and this is where, you know, a large majority of not only Scugog's fires, but Ontario's fires, and I would suggest fires across North America happen is in dwellings. And if we can do something to curb that trend, and we have a nasty history here in Scugog when it comes to dwelling fires, if we can curb that trend by creating this registry and enhancing the safety factor for our residents, it's win-win. It really, really is, and I would believe the CAO, along with my colleagues in bylaw, would agree that, you know, we do things on a cost recovery basis. The fees that I've put before council, you know, again, are based on the cost of staff, and I would suggest that we be looking at the same thing in recovering our costs.
Thank you. Do you have anything further to add? No? Okay. Sorry? Mr. Heritage?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think it's got to be remembered, too, that this is a good source of affordable housing. And this is a major component of our affordable housing within the Township of Scugog. So we want to make sure that affordable housing is safe for all residents within the township.
Good point, thank you.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, if I may continue. And again, this isn't disputing safety whatsoever. It's just coming off what we just discussed earlier on. We have to weigh both. Is it a statutory requirement to have secondary dwellings registered?
Director Heritage or Chief?
I'll start, if I may, Madam Mayor. From a fire perspective, it's not a statutory requirement. There is a requirement, though, to inspect dwellings of that type on a regular basis, especially when you create the registry. Yeah, you're almost you're compelled versus regulated.
Director Heritage?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there's a statutory requirement that's been passed down by the province to permit these types of dwelling or units within single semis, townhouses, and row houses within the zoning bylaw, and that is in the zoning bylaw now.
Thank you. The question was regarding the registration of it. And my very last question, Madam Mayor, is Section 3 refers to the financial implications to the registration, that the fee is a small fee, but it also says that there's a requirement for drawings to be provided. What type of drawings are we expecting? Because that would increase the cost to the person registering the dwelling if these are expensive drawings. I'm not familiar with what the requirements are.
Director Heritage, would you?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the majority of drawings in this case would be for new units, which would be a standard of any building process.
So the register would already have those drawings if they're already doing a new build?
If they're doing a new build, that would be a part of the building process, yes.
Wonderful. I think I'm probably over my limit. There was one more, but I can't find it right now, so thank you very much.
I'll come back to you. Any other questions, Councillor Watton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have several as well. My first one being on page 2 of 4 of the report. It says, further lack of registration would result in additional staffing costs for enforcement. What does that mean?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. We're required to permit them, the safety measure of having them registered. Lack of additional enforcement would be extra bylaw hours and any potential legal costs with respect to enforcing the registration requirement.
But at the moment, we don't have any registration process, so there would be no legal costs or no extra staffing costs if the registration process, correct? What would you have to enforce?
Not from the bylaw side, you're correct.
Okay. Secondly, with respect to the renewal fee, it reads that, that part of the registration is to have the building inspected and make sure it's compliant to the building code and so on. Why would you need to have a renewal fee if it is compliant?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the renewal fee is for the 5-year inspection to ensure that no changes have been made and it still meets the building code or fire code requirements.
But we don't do that on residential homes, so why would we do that if something has been built to code? Why would we think we have to go back in there and do that in 5 years? I'm sorry, I don't quite agree with that at all. But that's my personal. Also, on June 6th, and perhaps Kevin, Director Heritage can speak to this, but if, with respect to Bill 108, single dwellings can now have up to 3 units if the Bill 108 is passed. So will that then mean it's going to be per unit, or how will we be handling that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. If Bill 108 is approved and receives royal assent, it will require the township to amend its zoning bylaw to permit the 3 units, subject to criteria. In regards to this bylaw, we'd have to look at this bylaw again and amend the bylaw if it's passed after the legislation's approved.
So, if I might, would we be prudent to perhaps wait and see if Bill 108 receives royal assent before we would approve this bylaw?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. At this point in time, my view is that I think we should proceed at this point in time because it's, as we've indicated on a number of occasions, it's a safety issue, and that we want to ensure that the secondary dwelling units in these homes are safe. It's not a onerous task to come back with an amendment to this bylaw to permit third units if it is actually approved. And I'm not sure what the timing is on Bill 108.
I believe it's June 6th.
You said, pardon?
June 6th.
Well, that's what I understood for
Oh, yes, that's right.
for the Bill 108, so that's why I'm asking. Well, just also further to that, and this is just my comments before I won't be supporting it because I think it's contrary to trying to provide affordable housing, as Councillor Guido mentioned about drawings and renewals and things like that. I can truly appreciate that it is a safety thing, but I think, well, first off, I think once it is approved, and if there is a registration fee to that, I certainly cannot support a renewal. But above all that, I would like to see this report referred to the Housing Advisory Committee for their comment before we would approve it at all.
Any other further questions? Councillor McDougall? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Kesebrink, you were first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To Director Heritage, are there other communities, is there precedent for doing something like this? I think maybe there's two matters. One is what we're talking about as a residence where people are renting out a part of the house. So it's essentially turning it into a bit of a business. So any business has to have fire inspections and has to have, like even a bed and breakfast or something, they have to have water safety and things like that. There's safety components the moment that you turn it into a business. But there's also the possibility of a family having, you know, their mom come and live with them. So would there be a distinction between if it was being rented out as a business or if it's being rented out to family, in which case, I don't know if there should be a distinction there, so that would be one of my questions.
Director?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. Dealing with your first question, we're not setting a precedent here. There are other municipalities, especially in South Durham, that already have bylaws dealing with the registration of secondary dwelling units. And in terms of whether it's rented out as a business to somebody that's renting the facility or they're renting the second dwelling or accessory dwelling, or a family member, it doesn't matter. It's a safety issue, what it really comes down to.
And further, if I may, Madam Mayor, so as a mother, for example, when I was looking for a place for my daughter to stay in Toronto while in school, that was one of my frustrations, was that there's all these units that are available for rent, but they're not safe. There's no escape window and so on. And I was thinking at the time they shouldn't be allowed to rent out places that are not safe. Is there liability associated with the township in any way if we don't have some sort of registration process? Obviously, you've tried to not make it too onerous, but at the same time covering costs. But is there any liability for us to either have registration or not have one?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, my understanding is that, no, there's no liability, but we would like to proceed by the way of caution and actually have one of these bylaws prepared and endorsed by council so we can ensure safety.
My last comment, through you, Madam Mayor, would just be that I would, I would respect Councillor Watton's involvement with the Housing Committee, and I think that it would probably be a good idea to have this referred to them for their comment as well, because I think that all the matters expressed are really, really important and very valuable. Everything that our staff have brought forward is very valuable. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor McDougall?
Yes, thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. To Denise, the reason for registration is partially for reinspection for changes to the units, is that correct?
That's correct. It's we selected a 5-year period, just understanding that when people are renting it out for, as Councillor Kesebrink mentioned, business purposes, often if there is a turnover in any sort in the rental market, changes are sometimes made. So it just allows the municipality a chance to ensure that the safety measures required still exist.
Further through you, Madam Mayor, would you consider inspecting the dwelling itself as well as the dwelling unit for changes?
Mr. CAO?
I was just going to say, through you, Madam Mayor, I'm not sure that would, I think we would be stepping really widely outside of our jurisdiction doing that.
Further through you, Madam Mayor, perhaps to Director Heritage. So, is there a difference in the designation of these dwellings?
Through Madam Mayor to the Councilor, no, there's no difference in the designation of the dwellings. We're concerned with the accessory dwellings that are within a particular unit and whether they continue to be safe.
So further to...
Most of these units are located within the basement, and as Councilor Kiesebrink said, that there are a number of potential stumbling blocks that could occur within a unit within the basement. So we want to ensure that it is safe for, I guess, in terms of safety and escape from our particular unit.
Go ahead.
Further through you, Madam Mayor, thank you. I fully support the safety idea and the idea of the fire inspections, but once a dwelling unit would pass the building code purposes, I wonder, our purpose for inspecting one type of dwelling, or re-inspecting one type of dwelling every 5 years and not inspecting another type of dwelling every 5 years. I'm confused by that process. Personally, I would like to see this matter referred to the Housing Committee as well prior to us passing such a bylaw. Sorry.
I'd just like to add to what has been said. A house has to go through a building permit and it has to be to code. These apartments are usually built afterwards, so that's why they have to be inspected. Any further questions, Councillor Brown?
Just the money thing, I suppose, because these people are renting out their facilities or their additions to their homes or whatever it might be. I don't know how keen they're going to be on paying $250 for an admin fee, and I understand that you've grandfathered this in, so my understanding of it is they have until the end of the year and that's to beat the $250 admin fee. Is that right?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, so we want to encourage existing units to come forward. We're actually suggesting that the $250 registration fee be waived for the rest of 2019 to encourage anyone. So the grandfathered units will automatically, that it will be waived for them, but to encourage other existing units to come forward, we're suggesting that fee be waived for the rest of 2019.
Any subsequent to that, just any thoughts on making that a little bit longer, a little bit more appealing, maybe go 2 years or something? The $250, maybe it isn't that big a deal, I don't know, but $250 is a lot of money to people. And I know you got to recoup costs, but I'm just not sure how keen I would be to want to register anything if I got to pay $350 to do it. It's just a comment, it's not really a question. Thank you.
Councillor Guido?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On page 114, when it speaks to the penalty, $100,000 is the maximum penalty. Do we have any other penalties within the township that is that high?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Guido, that is what's prescribed under the Act. That's up to the courts to determine. We're just giving them, this is the worst-case scenario, that the Municipal Act prescribes these penalties, so basically any bylaw we have that has the Municipal Act as its enabling legislation, these would be the maximum penalties that would apply to any bylaw.
Okay, so should we not pass this at this point? Well, I guess my question would not make sense, so thank you.
Councillor Watton?
Thank you. So if they get grandfathered in, will they be inspected in 5 years? Okay, I still think that's going to be a deterrent.
Okay, I have a question. Most of my questions have been asked, but, where did my questions? The units that we don't know about, and there's probably a lot of them out there, they'll be grandfathered in, but they'll have to go through the whole inspection, whereas the ones that we know about, they don't have to go through the inspection again.
Yes, Madam Mayor. So the grandfathering is actually, technically, the grandfathering is for units that have already been inspected. Any new units that come forward, whether they existed or not, will have to go through, the grandfathered units will not have to go through an inspection right now.
Yeah.
They've already been inspected. New units that come forward to register will have to be inspected.
Yes.
We just will not be charging the fee,
That was my
the
point.
registration fee.
That was my point. The purpose of the $100 every 5 years, I would presume you would be asking questions like, do you still have a unit? Do you still use a unit for another family or person? Do you automatically do a reinspection? Or do you ask if there have been any changes? What would be the procedure?
The procedure, Madam Mayor, is to have the building department or fire department do that reinspection.
Okay. So, oh boy. We're going to refer it to the Housing Committee, or do you have another question? Okay. And you have another question, Councillor Keisbrink. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, to our director or to bylaw, whichever may be appropriate. How does this factor in, like, there are a lot of people that have concerns about utilizing online resources to book out their properties, and they may or may not even be there themselves for vacation rentals and things like that.
Airbnb.
So, yeah, like Airbnb is a good example, and what we end up with is that you could end up where you're renting out the space, and it's a 3-bedroom space, but you have 25 people show up, there's not enough parking, then the fire trucks can't get through, it's a safety hazard, and the poor residents who live in the area have no recourse except to call the police at 1 o'clock in the morning when they're up partying. Those people don't care because they're gone the next day. The homeowner may or may not be present. I'm wondering, I think what the issue there is that we as a municipality cannot help our constituents because there's no bylaws in place, there's no rules in place, there's no registration in place to recognize, when you get a unit and when you have approval, it's approval for X number of people and there's this much parking here, or because you could have a second and a third unit in a house that you're renting out, but I would assume that part of the registration would identify what are the aspects of this rental that are permitted, and then that would in turn give us the opportunity to defend the situation if it was being used improperly. So that's a really long statement, but I apologize. But my question is this: does this registration that you're recommending, is it purely for long-term rental, or does it address short-term rental at all?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, yes, this particular registration is for long-term rental. The short-term rentals, the Airbnb type of rentals, is separate and apart from this, and is something that we are currently looking at with how other municipalities are dealing with that.
Councillor Keisbrink and Denise, there is talk that staff at the region are working on a bylaw for Airbnbs, among other things, region-wide, and our staff will probably have some input in that before it comes to regional council. So, and part of the reason for that will be that they have to be inspected for health and safety, fire, building code, all of those things are going to be incorporated in this and licensed.
So, through you, Madam Mayor, my last comment is simply this: if these are already matters that we have to address as a council to protect our municipality, just playing devil's advocate here, I shouldn't say that because that doesn't infer anything one way or the other. Let me just say it this way. When we refer this back to our housing committee, could we ask them to look at and to take into account what would be the situation if there's a lot of people renting out properties, and then how does that affect neighbors? If there is no registration, if there is no way for us to legally make sure something is safe, how does that affect people that are complaining because they can't get at their places? The parking is all being used up, or fire can't get through, or snowplows, things like that. I'll just leave that in the air. Thank you.
Any other, Councillor Wanton, you want to go ahead now?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just ask that, I'd like to motion that recommendation 1 remain, and that the report be referred to the Housing Committee for their consideration, and remove 2 and 3 at this point in time until we hear back from the Housing Committee.
Okay, so you're referring it to the Housing Committee, you're recommending that we pass number 1, which is receiving the report, and that 2 and 3 be referred to the Housing Committee, who are meeting on June 13th, and then it can come back to council for final approval. Yes, we don't want, and Councillor Kiesebrink will second that. Got that, Mr. Clerk? Okay, any questions or comments? No, there is no questions or comments on a referral, right? Right, okay. All those in favor of the referral? That's carried, thank you. Okay. No notices of motion. New business, 12.1, the proclamations are on page 142. And they are for your information. Thank you, Denise. They're for your information that the proclamations and flag raising request for the month of June are Parachute Nonprofit Organization and the Township of Scugog Recreation and Culture. Parachute is for a week, June 3rd to 9th, and the Recreation and Culture is for a month, for the month of June. So that is there for your information. Could I have a mover to receive for information? Councillor McDougall, Councillor Guido, all those in favor? That's carried. No further closed session business. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Guido, Councillor Kiesebrink, all those in favor, and that's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you for the excellent report, staff.